Today we'll be looking at the early life and the current story of Black Ops Alex Mason, who is portrayed by Sam Worthington in Black Ops 1 and 2, and then by Chris Gilbert in Black Ops Cold War. Our goal here is to expand our knowledge of the lore within Call of Duty. So far we've covered the stories of Modern Warfare, the Black Ops series, and the Ghost storyline. We've also looked at the individual careers of many of their characters. Thank you guys for joining me, and welcome to the early life and the story of Alex Mason. Alex was born on June 3rd of 1993 in Fairbanks, Alaska, and he grew up during the Russian communist era and feared that the Cold War would affect his home and his normal life. This led to him growing up with anti-communist ideals, and this would push him to joining the US Marines eventually. However, during his formative years, Alex enjoyed hunting with his father, who fought in World War II, and when Alex was 20 years old, he would win the Wimbledon Marksman competition, marking him the youngest winner in their history at the time. After he joined the Marines, Alex would serve in many places. However, during the 50s, he spent much of his time in South Korea, and by 1958, he would be recruited to join the CIA, where he would meet Frank Woods, who became a brother to him, and then the two would work together on many operations. In 1961, during the Bay of Pigs invasion, Alex and Woods would infiltrate dictator Fidel Castro's home and apparently kill him. Then Alex and the team would make an escape. However, Alex would sacrifice himself to save the rest of the team, and he would be captured by Castro's men. Here, Alex would find out that the man that he and Woods actually shot was a double, and he would be given to General Nikita Dragovich by Castro as a show of goodwill for their new alliance. Mason would be transported to a Soviet labor camp in Vorkuta. Mason would be in Vorkuta for years, and he would be brainwashed by Dragovich's lapdog in Frederick Steiner and Lev Kravchenko. They wanted Mason to become a sleeper agent for the Soviets, and their end goal was to assassinate JFK at the hands of Mason. Alex would resist, and his willpower almost prevailed, but eventually he would falter and break. He would fall to the numbers broadcast and brainwashing. During his time in Vorkuta, Mason would meet Viktor Reznov, who was betrayed by Dragovich and lost many of his comrades due to him. Mason and Reznov would become friends after spending a lot of time together in solitary confinement. Here, Reznov would sabotage Mason's brainwashing and would redirect it to kill those responsible for the deaths of his fallen friends, especially one named Dmitry Petrenko. Mason would be unaware of the brainwashing for some time, however, but more on that later. Eventually, on October 6, 1963, a riot erupted in Vorkuta and allowed Mason and Reznov to attempt an escape. Mason would be successful, however, Reznov wouldn't be. Mason would return to the United States, and the CIA would take him in and get him back to work. He would receive a new handler, Jason Hudson, and he would be escorted to the Pentagon to meet with President JFK. During their meeting, Mason would struggle with his mind.
We are in grave danger from the communists. Our freedom, our very way of life is at risk. Dragovich. I'm told that you are the very best that we have. Anywhere. You will need to be. Mr. Mason, take care of it.
And about a month later, on November 17th, Mason and Woods will infiltrate a Soviet spaceport where Dragovich and Kravchenko would reportedly be. They also needed to rescue CIA double agent Gregor Weaver, who had been compromised. When they reached Weaver, he had lost an eye during an interrogation led by Kravchenko. The team would receive intel that Dragovich was still nearby, and they would corner him in his limousine and bomb it. Mason and Woods believed that Dragovich had been killed. However, unknown to them, he was never actually in that limousine. 5 days later, President JFK would be assassinated, and it is heavily theorized that Mason was the one who killed him due to Dragovich's brainwashing. There is evidence that suggests that Mason was in the crowds when JFK arrived, and it could be assumed that he may have been the second shooter that day. However, we never get a real confirmation on this, as Mason himself doesn't really remember what happens and ends up believing that he never did it. 5 years later, Mason would join a SOG unit led by Frank Woods into Vietnam to search for Soviet operators. Eventually, they would end up in Hue City after Mason received word from a Soviet defector who apparently had crucial intel regarding the Soviets' involvement in the war. Mason would meet with this defector, and it would turn out to be Reznov.
Reznov, how'd you get out of Vorkuta? Never thought I'd see you alive.
Not are you, my friend. I am here with a warning. Your government would do well to heed. Dragovich is planning an attack on the west.
and after receiving the intel, he and the team would exfil Hughes City. However, Reznov was never really there, and he was part of Mason's imagination due to Reznov sabotaging Mason's mind years ago in Vorkuta. Mason would hallucinate Reznov for the remainder of his life. A few days after Hughes City, Mason and Alex, alongside other operatives, would head to Laos, Vietnam, where they believed they could locate a chemical weapon that the Soviets controlled. Mason recalled that Reznov told him about a nerve gas created by Dragovich scientist Frederick Steiner named Nova 6. During their search for the weapon, they would be captured by Russian forces and given to the Viet Cong as prisoners. Here, they would be forced to engage in a deadly game of Russian roulette, and one of their operators would lose their life. However, Woods and Alex would fight their way out and make their way towards Kravchenko, eventually cornering him in his office. Mason would hallucinate Reznov again, and Mason would almost lose his life in a fight with Lev Kravchenko. However, Woods would risk his own life and save Mason, taking Kravchenko down with him. Mason looked through Kravchenko's things and would find information on Frederick Steiner, who appeared to be on Rebirth Island. Mason would escape Laos and head to Rebirth Island along Reznov, who again is in Mason's head. They would reach Rebirth Island and overhear that the CIA were on their way as well to take Frederick alive. Mason and Reznov couldn't let this happen, so they hurried to make it to Steiner first. After Mason executed Steiner, he was knocked out and taken by Hudson and Weaver to be interrogated, as they needed to find Dragovich before he could execute his plan and instigate a World War III. After hours of interrogating, it was a failure, and Mason couldn't remember the number's meaning. DEFCON 2 would be announced, and in a last-ditch effort, Hudson revealed the truth to Mason. This led to Mason finally deciphering the number's meanings, which led them to a ship called the Rusalka, located in Cuba. Mason would locate Dragovich, and he would finally kill him.
You should have been my finest agent. It would have all been so much simpler.
Dragovich!
Yes! I'm gonna kill you!
Try to fuck with my mind! Fire!
You don't know anything!
Try to turn me against my own! Try to make me kill my own president!
Tried.
Come on, Mason!
About 10 years later, Mason had retired, met a woman, he fell in love, got married, and had a son named David. However, his wife would die to unknown circumstances, only a few years into their marriage, and Mason would be left alone raising their son, David. However, in 1981, Mason would return to active duty and report to Russell Adler and his old friend, Frank Woods, in Amsterdam. How was Woods alive? Well, he didn't actually die in Laos. He was captured and sent to a camp, but eventually escaped and returned to the CIA. And going back to 1981, the operation in Amsterdam was to capture or kill Qasim Javadi and Arash Kandivar. After cornering Javadi, they interrogated him.
He's in Turkey!
The team make their way to Turkey to eliminate Kandivar. Once Mason confirms his identity, they attack and a chase ensues. Once the chase is over, Kandivar reveals that Perseus, a Soviet spy rumored to be dead, is actually alive and coming out of the shadows to destroy the West. Adler executes Kandivar and they take one of Perseus' men captive to interrogate him. Mason joins Woods, Hudson, and Adler in a meeting with President Reagan, who grants authority to make a new task force led by Adler, which Mason will now be a part of. The mission is to capture and kill Perseus to avoid a greater conflict arising. Adler split Woods and Mason into a team and they run an operation together in Kiev. When they return, Adler informs them on Operation Greenlight, which causes them to confront Hudson. After this, intel suggests that Perseus is excavating Mount Yamantau in search for Dragovich's mainframe. Mason and Woods are sent to the base and recover the mainframe. However, it's already been wiped clean, which leads Adler to infiltrate the KGB headquarters and sends Mason and Woods to eliminate two of Perseus' known associates. A few days later, Mason heads to Cuba alongside Adler as they track down Theodore Hastings, a sleeper agent responsible for creating nukes that can destroy the West. However, this mission was a failure as Perseus had already reverse engineered the nukes so that he can cause them to explode all over Europe and blame it on the United States. And a few hours later, Adler would finally break the man that they recovered from Turkey a couple of days ago, and he would reveal where Perseus and the nukes were. Mason would join the team and stop a bigger conflict from occurring once again. They would take back control of the nukes. However, Perseus would escape. The team would continue their search for Perseus, and Mason would return home to care for David. However, in 1984, Woods would ask Mason for help as Adler had gone rogue due to the same brainwashing that he went through back in the 60s. Mason would return and locate Adler, and Mason would break the brainwashing and help Adler get revenge on the man responsible. After Alex Mason helped Adler, he retired once again and he went home to try and be there for his son, as he knew that coming and going was having a big effect on him. 2 years would now go by and Mason was climbing a tree with his son.
I need help.
You're 7 years old, David. Stop acting like a baby.
However, he sees helicopters approaching his home, and it turns out to be Jason Hudson.
What are you doing here?
Yesterday, Sergeant Woods led a covert team to take out an arms smuggling ring in Angola. This morning, we lost contact.
So go get him, CIA. Why are you here?
Castro and the Russians are all over Angola. We can't go in. The CIA have buried the mission. Woods and his squad no longer exist.
We got whatever you need, Mason. Name it.
David can stay with Jenny, like before. She loves having him. He'll be fine.
Dad, you said you'd never go back to the army. You promised me.
It's Uncle Woods, son. He'd do it for me.
Mason knew that he needed to save Woods, and so he went with Hudson to Angola and joined the UNITA forces in their civil war. Jonas Savimbi, who was the leader of the UNITA, gave Mason intel on Woods' location, and Mason headed there with Hudson. Eventually, they find Woods inside of a container full of dead bodies. Here, Woods was dying slowly. Mason takes Wood out and carries him away. However, they are attacked but make it to a safe spot. Here, Mason makes his way alone to a nearby radio station to call Savimbi for an extraction. However, here he encounters Raul Menendez.
You're a dead man unless you do exactly as I say. Tune the radio.
You're going to kill me, see?
No one move or this fucker gets it!
El americano le está diciendo que no se mueva.
Shut up!
Él piensa que está en control, pero él no
I
es.
said shut up! Lower your weapon! I swear to God, I'll kill this bastard!
Los americanos no saben nada sobre la lealtad. Quizás nosotros deberíamos demostrar.
You son of a bitch!
After he escapes from Menendez, Mason and Hudson make it to the beach with Woods and they are extracted by Savimbi. About 2 months later, Mason would rejoin the CIA and head to Afghanistan alongside Woods and Hudson to retrieve intel on Raul Menendez. Here they were met with Soviet forces. They begin to attack, and soon after, Lev Kravchenko reappears and he jumps on Mason. After a struggle, Mason is able to get the better of him and they take him to be interrogated in a Mujahideen hideout. During this, Mason begins to hear Reznov again and his brainwashing begins to kick in as he feels the urge to kill Kravchenko.
That's not gonna happen. The fuck are you doing?
Menendez told me you must suffer.
After Mason kills Kravchenko, it would be revealed that the Mujahideen were working for Menendez, and they would betray Mason and the team and leave them for dead in the desert. However, they would be rescued and make it out alive. Mason always believed that it was Reznov who saved them by giving them water and help due to his hallucinations, but Woods never bought it as he never really saw it. Either way, after they regrouped, the CIA would receive information on a Menendez compound, and the team would head over there and meet with Panama director Manuel Noriega. The CIA would make a deal with him in exchange for his help in catching Menendez. Noriega would agree, but he would double-cross them and help Menendez escape before Mason and the team arrived. When the team arrived at the compound, they would begin to take out Menendez's men, and Mason would stumble upon a file that showed a mole within the CIA working for Menendez. Mason would keep this and he would continue towards the target. The team would reach Josefina's room, which is Menendez's sister. Raul had returned for her. Woods attempts to kill Menendez but is stopped by Mason due to wanting to take him alive. Woods headbutts Mason and launches a grenade that inadvertently lands inside of Josefina's room, presumably killing both her and Raul Menendez. Some time would go by, and on December 19 of 1989, Mason, Woods, and CIA operatives would meet to discuss the plans for the invasion of Panama, which included capturing Manuel Noriega and destroying his reputation. Mason and Woods would enter Panama and call Hudson for the location of Noriega. It took some time to hear back, but eventually he revealed that he was in a hotel nearby.
Secure him.
Give me a reason to blow your head off. Come on.
Hey, what are you doing? Sealing your reputation.
This is not a deal. Call your boss.
Put your ass in a chair.
Hudson, it's Mason.
Go ahead, Mason.
Post profit secure. Moving to extract.
No, negative. Stand by for new tasking. Objective False Prophet has intel on a priority Nexus target. Escort him as PC to alternate location for prisoner exchange. More to follow.
Precious cargo, my ass.
Nexus target? Who's more important than this asshole?
I don't like it either, but let's just get this done. We're burning too much time.
Once they reach the army checkpoint, they move out to take out this Nexus target. Mason and Woods split up and head to opposite sides of the building. Woods leaves with Noriega and communication is lost between Mason and Woods. Mason is ambushed and is taken to a different location. Everything is dark and he is struggling as he doesn't know where he is. And then suddenly, Mason would be killed by Woods after Hudson ordered a headshot on the covered target Woods believed to be Menendez. However, Raul was behind the whole thing, and for more on that, you can check out the story of Call of Duty Black Ops 2 here. Now, for some time, we weren't sure which ending was canon. Did Mason really die, or did he go into hiding after Woods shot him anywhere else besides the head? Black Ops devs have now confirmed that Mason did in fact die in 1989 at the hands of Menendez. Now, that's not what fans want to hear, and I personally think maybe they're trying to throw us off for a potential reveal in Black Ops 6. However, I could be very wrong. Mason is one of the best and most loved characters in the Black Ops universe, and really in the Call of Duty franchise. If he really met his end in 1989, that is a damn shame. This has been the early life and the story of Alex Mason.